Hello and welcome to Lucid Mind Chemistry channel with Majid. In this video, I'll be solving Chemistry O-Levels multiple choice, paper 11 from October-November 2021. You can go to any particular question by following timestamps given in the video description. Let's start. Question 1. A student makes aqueous copper 2 sulfate. The student adds an excess of copper 2 oxide powder to warm sulfuric acid and stirs the mixture. Which apparatus should be used to separate aqueous copper 2 sulfate from the excess copper 2 oxide? We can write the chemical equation for this reaction. We have copper oxide. Copper oxide is insoluble oxide, so therefore it is in solid form. Then we have sulfuric acid with which it reacts, H2SO4. Acid is always aqueous. It forms copper sulfate. Copper sulfate salt is also soluble, so it is aqueous, plus H2O, which is liquid. Now we can see in the question they have given excess of copper 2 oxide. So this one is in excess, while this one is limiting. So after the chemical reaction, excess sum of copper oxide will be left behind, and also copper sulfate is formed. Now as one is aqueous and second is solid, so if this one is insoluble, that is soluble, so we can use filter funnel and paper to separate copper oxide from copper sulfate. Correct answer is therefore C. Question 2. A student follows the rate of the reaction between marble chips. We have calcium carbonate and dilute hydrochloric acid. The reaction is given. Calcium carbonate reacts with hydrochloric acid to form salt, carbon dioxide and water. Which diagram show apparatus that with a stopwatch is suitable for this experiment? In this reaction, we are studying the rate of chemical reaction. Now, rate of reaction can be determined by measuring the change in mass per unit time or change in volume per unit time. For mass, we can use calcium carbonate as it is solid, so we can measure the change in mass. For volume, we can use amount of carbon dioxide that is formed. In first experiment, we can see we have marble chips, which is calcium carbonate. It reacts with hydrochloric acid. Now gas is formed and this gas is collected using measuring cylinder. We also have a stopwatch in each experiment, so therefore we can measure the change in volume per unit time or volume of gas produced per unit time. This will give us the rate of the reaction, so therefore experiment 1 is correct. In experiment 2, we have marble chips that reacts with hydrochloric acid and there is loose cotton plug. So what will happen that when carbon dioxide is formed, it will be released from this plug. So we can measure the change in mass using the given balance. So it is the loss of mass of calcium carbonate per unit time. So experiment 2 is also correct. This is the third experiment. In this experiment, we have hydrochloric acid present in the burette, which will be poured dropwise, and we have marble chips present. The balance is not given, so we cannot measure the change in mass. Also, the gas which is formed, it will escape as this is open. So we can neither measure the change in mass nor measure the change in volume of carbon dioxide. So therefore third experiment is incorrect for measuring rate of reaction. As experiment 1 and 2 only are correct, so therefore answer is B. Question 3. A mixture of three liquids is separated by fractional distillation. Which statements are correct? Number 1. The mixture boils at constant temperature throughout the separation. This is incorrect because the mixture does not boil at constant temperature as we are separating by fractional distillation, so slowly temperature will rise. Number 2. The temperature at which mixture boils increases during the separation. This is true because as we are heating it, what will happen that the temperature will increase slowly. Number 3. The liquid with the highest boiling point is collected first. This is incorrect because in fractional distillation we slowly increase the temperature, and the liquid with the lowest boiling point, it is first converted into vapors and then it is condensed back into the liquid form. So therefore the liquid with the lowest boiling point will be collected first. As option 2 and 4 are correct, therefore answer is D. Question 4. A mixture of 4 colored dyes is analyzed by chromatography. The result is shown. We have the solvent front and this one is the baseline. Which change will allow the 4 dyes to be seen? As in the question, they have given 4 colored dyes, while in the chromatogram we can see only 3 are visible. It means that the 4th colored dye is still not separated. Part A, measure the RF value, which is the retention factor of the spots carefully. We can measure the RF value of these 3 spots, while the other spot is not present, so therefore we cannot measure the RF value of the 4th spot. So therefore this has nothing to do with the appearance of the 4th dye. Part B, run the chromatogram for a longer time. Now in long time what will happen that the solvent front, it might exceed the top, which is incorrect. The solvent front can never exceed the top limit of the paper. So this one is incorrect. Part C, run the chromatogram using a different solvent. Now this one could be the possible option because different solvents have different solubilities of dyes. So therefore by using different solvent we can make visible the 4th dye as that was colored. Now in the solvent that was used in this experiment, the 4th dye was more soluble, so therefore that is not separated. So while using different solvent, it might be less soluble in a different solvent, so therefore it could be seen after the experiment. Part D, using a locating agent. Now locating agent can be used if invisible spots or invisible dyes are present, for example amino acids. But in this experiment they have stated that all 4 dyes are colored. So therefore we cannot use a locating agent for the dye that is already colored. Correct answer is therefore part C. Question 5. A compound X, when heated with an aqueous solution of compound Y, produces a gas that turns red litmus to blue. There are 4 options and it says which statements are correct. Now we can see that the gas that turns red litmus blue, it means that the gas formed is basic in nature. Let's see the options. Number 1, Y could be potassium hydroxide. Now we can see if we take compound X as the salt of ammonia, for example ammonium salt, ammonium chloride, it can react with alkali to form ammonia gas along with salt and water. So yes, Y could be aqueous solution of potassium hydroxide, so option 1 could be correct. Option 2, X is an acid. Now there is no such reaction in which acid forms a basic gas, so therefore this one is incorrect. Option 3, X could be an ammonium salt. We have already discussed this one, that this is X, which is a salt of ammonium, and this one is Y, which is alkali, so therefore it will release ammonia gas. So option 3 could be correct. Option 4, X could be sodium nitrate. Now in this one we have nitrate ions, and we can see that we also have a test for nitrate in which nitrate reacts with aqueous sodium hydroxide, which is dilute sodium hydroxide, and in the presence of aluminum foil and warming the mixture, we can form ammonia gas. Now such conditions are not given in this question, only heat is given, so therefore option 4 is incorrect. As option 1 and 3 are correct, so therefore answer is B. Question 6. An aqueous solution of zinc chloride is tested by adding reagents. Which observation is correct? First is the reagent added to zinc chloride and second is the observation. Part A. Acidified aqueous barium nitrate and forms a white precipitate. Let's add barium nitrate to zinc chloride. We can see we have barium nitrate which is soluble, so it is aqueous. It can react with zinc chloride, which is also aqueous, to form barium chloride and zinc nitrate. As both barium chloride and zinc nitrate are soluble, so therefore we cannot see a white precipitate. So option A is incorrect. Part B. Aqueous ammonia and it forms a white precipitate soluble in excess of the reagent. Now in aqueous solution of zinc chloride, we have two ions, one is zinc +2 and one is chloride negative. Now in the test for cations, if we add aqueous ammonia in zinc +2 ions, what will happen that it forms a white precipitate of zinc hydroxide, which is soluble in excess of the reagent. So option B is correct. Option C, aqueous sodium hydroxide and it forms a white precipitate insoluble in excess of the reagent. Now aqueous sodium hydroxide, it will form zinc hydroxide with zinc chloride, and zinc hydroxide is white precipitate. So first part is correct that it will form a white precipitate, but second part it says insoluble in excess of the reagent. This is incorrect because zinc hydroxide is soluble in excess sodium hydroxide. Part D, we have powdered copper, which if added to zinc chloride, it forms a gray precipitate. Let's see this one. As copper is less reactive as compared to zinc chloride, so therefore this reaction will not occur. The only correct option is part B. Question 7. The rate of diffusion of carbon dioxide and methane is investigated at two different temperatures, one high temperature and one is low. Which row correctly shows the gas that diffuses faster and the temperature at which diffusion takes place most rapidly? So we can see we have to find out the gas that diffuses faster and we have to find out the temperature at which diffusion is faster. For this, you have to remember that diffusion is inversely proportional to molecular mass. So if molecular mass is less, then diffusion will be faster. Second thing is that rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the temperature. So if you increase the temperature, the kinetic energy of the molecules also increase and therefore diffusion will be faster. So temperature should be high. Among carbon dioxide and methane, we can find the molecular mass. In carbon dioxide, we have 1 carbon. Atomic mass is 12. We have 2 oxygen, so collective masses for 2 oxygen is 32. So overall, the molecular mass is 44. For methane, we have the formula CH4. 1 carbon is 12 and we have 4 hydrogen atoms, so it will become 4. And overall molecular mass is 16. So therefore methane will diffuse faster as compared to carbon dioxide as its molecular mass is less. Correct option is therefore part C. Question 8. Which statement about atoms and ions is correct? Part A. Atoms and ions of the same element must have different number of neutrons. This statement is incorrect because in formation of ions from atoms, there is only a change in number of electrons. The number of neutrons does not change. So it should be different number of electrons. Part B. Isotopes of different elements must have different number of neutrons. Now the definition of isotopes is that in isotopes we have atoms of the same element in which we have different number of neutrons. Option C. The charge on a positive ion is equal to nucleon number minus number of neutrons minus number of electrons. Let's do this one. Let's suppose we have sodium, Na positive. Atomic mass is 23, atomic number is 11. Now nucleon number is 23. Number of neutrons we can find by subtracting 23 with 11, so we have 12 neutrons. Number of electrons, as this is positive charge, so therefore the number of electron is less than the number of protons, as one electron is lost, so therefore number of electron is 10. So we can use this formula. Charge on positive ion is equal to nucleon number 23 minus number of neutrons, which is 12, minus number of electrons, which is 10. So 23 minus 12 minus 10, it is equal to plus 1. Now we can see that the charge on sodium is plus 1, so therefore this one is correct. Part D. The number of protons and the number of neutrons in an atom must be the same. In neutral atom, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. The number of neutrons could be less or more than the number of protons. So this statement is incorrect. Correct answer is therefore part C. Question 9. The bonding in a molecule of carbon dioxide can be represented by a dot and cross diagram. Which diagram is correct? Now we can draw the structure of carbon dioxide, in which we have carbon atom as the center and one oxygen is making double bond on one side and one oxygen is present on the second side. Now carbon is in fourth group of the periodic table, so it has 4 electrons in the outermost shell. Oxygen is in 6th group of the periodic table and it has 6 electrons in the outermost shell. Oxygen needs 2 more electrons, so therefore it will make a double bond with carbon. Similarly, second oxygen will also make a double bond with carbon atom. So the structure must be like this. In carbon, now 8 electrons are complete. Now we can draw the structure of oxygen. Now second oxygen. So this is the structure of CO2. In option A, we can see we have 4 electrons of carbon, 1, 2, 3, 4, which are represented by dot. 2 bonds are making by one oxygen and 2 bonds are made by second oxygen. So option A is correct. In option B, carbon only makes single covalent bond, which is incorrect. It should make double covalent bond on both sides. In option 3, we have oxygen in the center and there are 2 carbons. The formula is CO2, not C2O. So C is also incorrect. In part D, we can see we have only 2 electrons shown for oxygen atom, while there are 6 electrons in the outermost shell of oxygen. Correct option is therefore A. Question 10. Which statement about the structure or bonding of metals is correct? Part A. A metal lattice consists of negative ions in a sea of electrons. This one is incorrect because metal consists of positive ions in a sea of electrons. Part B, electrons in a metal move randomly through the lattice. This is true because electrons are free to move, so they can move freely wherever they want. Part C, metals are malleable. This is true because the ions present are mobile. Now the ions, which are positive ions, are actually fixed in the position, therefore the metals have fixed shape. And metals are malleable because the atoms present, they can slide over each other. So therefore this statement is wrong. Part D, the ions in a metal move when positive and negative electrodes are attached. Now when current is passed from positive and negative electrodes, it is the electrons that start to move, not the ions. Correct option is therefore part B. Question 11. The relative atomic mass of chlorine is 35.5. What is the mass of 2 moles of chlorine gas? We can use the formula for mass. We can see mass in grams is equal to number of moles into mR. Now we have chlorine gas. Chlorine gas is Cl2. There are 2 chlorine atoms present in 1 molecule of chlorine gas. So the molecular mass will be 2 into 35.5, which is equal to 71. As we have 2 moles, so we can put 2 moles instead of moles, and mR is 71. So 71 into 2 is 142 grams. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 12. Methane burns in oxygen. The formula is given. We have methane that reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. 10 centimeter cube of methane is reacted with 25 centimeter cube of oxygen. What is the total volume of gas that would be measured after the reaction? Assume all volumes of gases are measured at room temperature and pressure. We can rewrite this equation. We have CH4, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water. Among these 4, water is in liquid form while all other 3 are in gaseous states. They have given the balanced equation. We have 2 moles of oxygen and 2 moles of water. Now from the balanced equation we can see if that 1 mole of CH4 reacts with 2 moles of oxygen and forms 1 mole of carbon dioxide. Water is liquid, so therefore we are not going to include that one. For gaseous reactions, you should always remember that for gases the ratio of moles is the same as the ratio of volumes. So volume ratio is same as mole ratio. Therefore, we can also say that 1 volume of CH4, it reacts with 2 volumes of oxygen to form 1 volume of carbon dioxide. In the question, they have given 10 centimeter cube of methane, so therefore we can write 10 instead of 1. So if this is 10, then this will be, as it is 1:2, this will be 20 centimeter cube. Now as the ratio of CH4 with carbon dioxide is also 1:1, so therefore if this is 10 centimeter cube, carbon dioxide will also be 10 centimeter cube. Now these are the volumes on the basis of balanced equation. Now look at the volumes that are given. We had 10 centimeter cube and 25 centimeter cube. So the given volume is 10 centimeter cube of CH4 and 25 centimeter cube of oxygen. Now what will happen that CH4 will react with oxygen and 10 centimeter cube of CH4 will be consumed. So therefore no more CH4 is present after the chemical reaction. And 20 centimeter cube of oxygen will react with 10 centimeter cube of CH4. So therefore as we have 25 centimeter cube, so 25 minus 20, so 5 centimeter cube of oxygen is left behind. So from oxygen we only have 5 centimeter cube after chemical reaction, and as the ratio of CH4 and CO2 is 1 to 1, so therefore 10 centimeter cube of CH4 will form 10 centimeter cube of CO2. So after chemical reaction we have 10 centimeter cube of CO2 that is formed. Now the total volume of gases is, we have 5 centimeter cube of oxygen. All methane has reacted and CO2 is formed. 10 centimeter cube of CO2 is formed. Total volume after chemical reaction is 15 centimeter cube. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 13. An aqueous solution is made by dissolving 3.4 grams of sodium hydroxide to make 500 centimeter cube of solution. What is the concentration in mole per decimeter cube of this sodium hydroxide solution? We can use the formula for concentration in mole per decimeter cube. It is equal to the amount in moles or number of moles divided by volume in decimeter cube. Let's find both of these. They have given us mass in grams for sodium hydroxide. Now we can find the molecular mass of sodium hydroxide. Sodium is 23, oxygen is 16, hydrogen is 1. So mR of sodium hydroxide is 40. Number of moles is equal to mass in grams divided by mR. Mass in grams is 3.4, mR is 40. So therefore we can divide both of these. So it comes equal to 0.085 moles. Now volume is given in centimeter cube. We can change it to decimeter cube by dividing by 1000. So 500 divided by 1000, it will be 0.5 decimeter cube. Now we can put the values. Moles is 0.085. Volume is 0.5. It comes equal to 0.17 mole per decimeter cube. So correct answer is therefore C. Question 14. Which statement about electrolysis reactions is correct? Part A. Bromine is formed at the anode when molten lead bromide is electrolyzed. Now in molten lead bromide we have lead ions, which is Pb2 positive, and we have bromide Br negative. Now this one is cation and cation moves towards cathode, while bromide is anion and anion goes towards anode. So when bromide ion, it will move towards anode, it will lose its electrons and form bromine gas. We can balance the equation. 2 bromide ions forms 1 molecule of bromine along with 2 electrons that are lost. So this one is correct. B. Positive ions are discharged at the positive electrode. This is incorrect because the positive ions, for example cations, they move towards cathode. Cathode is negative electrode. Part C. Sodium is formed at the cathode when aqueous sodium chloride is electrolyzed. Now we have aqueous sodium chloride. We can find the number of ions present. In aqueous sodium chloride we have Na positive. We have H positive from water. We have Cl negative from sodium chloride. We also have OH negative from water. Now among the cations, H plus will be discharged more easily based on the discharge series, so therefore hydrogen gas will be formed at the cathode. Sodium is not formed, it is hydrogen gas that is formed at the cathode when aqueous solution is electrolyzed, so part C is wrong. Part D. Sulfur dioxide is formed as a gas when dilute sulfuric acid is electrolyzed. Now in electrolysis of dilute sulfuric acid we have these ions that are present. H positive from sulfuric acid, H positive from water. We have sulfate from sulfuric acid and we have hydroxide from water. Now as we know that sulfate are never discharged, so therefore only two options are left. One is H positive, second is OH negative. So it is hydrogen gas that is formed from H positive ions and it is oxygen gas that is formed from OH negative ions. Sulfur dioxide is not formed, so therefore D is also wrong. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 15. The apparatus shown is set up to plate a steel key with copper. We have this copper and we have steel key that is attached at the electrodes. The solution is of aqueous copper 2 sulfate. The key does not get coated with copper. Which change needs to be made to plate the key? In this experiment we can see that the copper is electroplated on the key, so therefore copper must be attached to anode. And anode is positive electrode or positive terminal of battery. Because anode always dissolves in the solution and then it gets deposited on the cathode. So these should be reversed. Let's look at the options. We have A, which says increase in concentration of the aqueous copper 2 sulfate. This will not result in the electroplating because the terminals are reversed. Part B is increase in voltage. It is also incorrect. Part C is that the replace solution with dilute sulfuric acid. This is also incorrect because we need the solution of copper in order to electroplate copper. Part D, reverse electrical connections. This one is true. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 16. Which process is endothermic? Endothermic means that the reaction in which heat is absorbed from the surroundings. Part A, atoms bonding to form molecules. In this bonding is involved, so therefore bond making is exothermic. This is because the atoms become more stable when they form bonds to form molecules. So therefore more stable means that the energy is released. So therefore this is not endothermic. A is incorrect. Part B, the chemical reaction occurring in a fuel cell. In fuel cell, hydrogen gas and oxygen gas that they react to form water. As energy is produced, so therefore this reaction is exothermic, it is not endothermic. Also you can see that the molecules, they move from gaseous states to liquid state. So therefore the reaction is exothermic. This is incorrect. Part C, the reaction of carbon dioxide and water to produce glucose and oxygen. Now this is a part of photosynthesis in which carbon dioxide and water, they react in the presence of sunlight. So therefore they need energy, external energy, which is absorbed. So the reaction is endothermic. As heat is absorbed. Part D, the reaction of methane with oxygen to produce water and carbon dioxide. This is combustion reaction in which methane, it converts into CO2 and H2O along with production of heat. So this is example of exothermic reaction. Correct answer is therefore part C. Question 17. The reaction of hydrogen with chlorine to form gaseous hydrogen chloride is exothermic. Which statement is correct? Part A, the total energy of bond formation is greater than the total energy of bond breaking. Now bond breaking is endothermic. or you can say it is positive because energy is required to break a bond, and bond formation is exothermic, or you can say it is negative. If this one is greater than this one, so therefore overall it will be negative. So it should be exothermic. If exothermic value is greater than endothermic value, so therefore when adding together the result will be negative or exothermic. So option A is correct. Option B, the total energy of bond breaking is greater than the total energy of bond formation. Now bond breaking is endothermic is total if endothermic is greater than exothermic. So the resultant would be positive. But as they have given that this reaction is exothermic, so it must be negative, not positive. So option B is wrong. Option C, the temperature of the reaction mixture falls during the reaction. Now in exothermic reactions, what happens that the temperature is increased, so therefore temperature does not fall, it increases during the chemical reaction. For D, the temperature of the reaction mixtures remain unchanged. Again, this is also incorrect because in exothermic reactions, the temperature must increase. Correct answer is therefore part A. Question 18. The equation shows the reaction for the manufacture of ammonia. We have nitrogen gas that reacts with hydrogen gas to form ammonia gas. Which change will decrease the activation energy of the reaction? Part A, addition of a catalyst. Now this is true because catalyst decreases the activation energy of the reaction and now the reaction will become faster. So option A is correct. Option B, decrease in temperature. Now decrease in temperature does not decrease the activation energy, it decreases the average kinetic energy of the molecules. Third one is increase in concentration. Concentration does not change the activation energy, only catalyst can decrease the activation energy. Correct option is part A. Question 19. Which statements about oxidation and reduction are correct? We can define oxidation and reduction as this. Oxidation is gain of oxygen. Reduction is loss of oxygen. Oxidation can also be defined as loss of hydrogen. Reduction will be the reverse, it will be the gain of hydrogen. Oxidation is also the loss of electrons. Reduction will be the gain of electrons. Now looking at the statement, we can see reduction can involve the loss of oxygen. This is true. Oxidation can involve the loss of hydrogen. This is also true. Reduction can involve the loss of electrons. No, this is incorrect because it involves the gain of electrons. As option 1 and 2 are correct, so therefore answer is A. Question 20. Aqueous ammonium nitrate is decomposed when heated. It will form nitrogen gas along with water molecules in liquid form. In this salt, the anion is 1. The nitrogen atoms in the 2 ion are oxidized during the reaction. Which formula correctly complete gaps 1 and gap 2? We have ammonium nitrite, which is aqueous, so it is NH4NO2. We know ammonium is positive charge, so if this portion is positive, this one will be negative. Now among these, positive ion is called cation while negative ion is called anion. So in this salt the anion is NO2 negative, so this is 1, so therefore it is either C or D. Now in option 2 we can see that the nitrogen atoms are oxidized. As in the equation we can see that the oxidation state on N2 it is 0 because it is in molecular form. Let's see which ion is oxidized and which is reduced. Let's find the oxidation state of nitrogen in NH4. NH4 is +1. The oxidation state of one hydrogen is +1, so for 4 hydrogen it will be +4 equals +1. Nitrogen equals +1 minus 4, it is -3. So from -3 to 0 there is an increase in oxidation state, so therefore this is called oxidation. Let's find the other one, NO2. The charge is -1. As we have 2 oxygen atoms, so for 1 oxygen the oxidation state is -2, for 2 it will be 4. Nitrogen equals -1 plus 4, or it is equal to +3. So from +3 to 0 it is called reduction. They have asked about oxidation, so therefore this is ammonium ion. Correct answer is therefore part C. Question 21. Element X and Y, they react together in a reversible reaction to form XY2. The equation is given. We have 1 mole of X that reacts with 2 moles of Y to form 1 mole of XY2. 1 mole of X is mixed with 1 mole of Y and the mixture is left to react until an equilibrium position is reached. Which statement about this reaction are correct? Option 1. After the equilibrium position has been reached, the reaction stops. This is incorrect because the reversible reaction never stops. It is dynamic in nature. So it continues both in the forward and backward direction all the time. Option 2. At equilibrium there is more than 0.5 moles of X present. Let's write the balanced equation. We have X, 2Y, and it forms XY2. So according to balanced equation, 1 mole of X requires 2 moles of Y to form 1 mole of XY2. In the question they have given 1 mole of X and 1 mole of Y. So as we can see, according to the ratio, 2 moles of Y needs 1 mole of X. So therefore if there was 1 mole of Y, then it would need half moles of X. Now as this reaction is reversible, it means that reactants are not fully consumed. So less than 0.5 moles of X will react with less than 1 mole of Y to form less than 1 mole of XY2. This is because in reversible reaction there is always some amount of reactant present. The reactant is not fully consumed. So as we have 1 mole of X, out of which less than 0.5 moles has reacted, so therefore we can subtract these two. For example, if this was 0.4, which is less than 0.5, so 0.6 moles of X is still present at equilibrium. So it says at equilibrium there is more than 0.5 moles of X present. This is true. And it says at equilibrium there is less than 1 mole of XY2 present. Now if the reaction was fully gone to completion, then 1 mole of XY2 would be formed. But as the reaction is reversible, so therefore less than 1 mole of XY2 is formed. This option is also correct. As option 2 and 3 are correct, therefore answer is D. Question 22. Two solutions are prepared. First is the solution P, which is 0.05 mole per decimeter cube hydrochloric acid. Second is solution Q, which is 0.1 mole per decimeter cube butanoic acid. A 2 cm strip of magnesium ribbon is put into 100 cm3 of each solution. Fizzing is seen in both solutions, but the fizzing is faster in solution P than in solution Q. Which statement helps to explain this observation? Part A. Magnesium reacts with solution P to form a salt, but does not form a salt with solution Q. Let's write the chemical reaction. With hydrochloric acid, we have HCl. It reacts with magnesium to form MgCl2, which is a salt, along with the production of water molecules. This is acid metal reaction to form salt and water. Similarly, butanoic acid is CH3CH2 CH2COOH. It can also react with magnesium as it is an acid to form salt. So the salt will be CH3CH2CH2 COO whole twice Mg. So it is magnesium butanoate along with H2O. Now in both reactions salt is formed, so therefore option A is wrong. Part B. More particles are dissociated in solution P than are dissociated in solution Q. As we can see that HCl is strong mineral acid, so it dissociates completely into its respective ions. It forms H positive ions and Cl negative ions. While butanoic acid is comparatively a weak acid, so therefore all molecules will not be dissociated. Some molecules will still be left behind in the form of butanoic acid. So more particles are dissociated in solution P. This one is correct as compared to Q. Option C. Solution Q contains a stronger acid than solution P. Now in Q we have butanoic acid and in P we have hydrochloric acid. Butanoic acid is weak acid as compared to hydrochloric acid, so therefore this is incorrect. Option D. The particles are closer together in solution Q than they are in solution P. As we can see that the fizzing is faster in solution P, it means that the number of ions or particles in solution P is greater as compared to solution Q. So we can say that the particles are closer together in solution P as compared to solution Q, because in solution Q the number of particles would be less. So this statement is also incorrect. Correct option is therefore B. Question 23. Which compound can be formed by precipitation? Now in precipitation method, insoluble salt is formed, which is in the form of precipitate. And from solubility table we know that all sodium salts, all potassium salts, all nitrates are always soluble. This one is sodium salt, so it is soluble. This one is potassium salt, so it is also soluble. This one is a nitrate, so therefore this is also soluble. So the only one which is insoluble is lead sulfate. So therefore lead sulfate is the only salt that can be prepared by precipitation method. Question 24. In a neutralization reaction, which change in particles occurs? Let's write an equation for neutralization in which acid, for example HCl, it reacts with alkali, for example NaOH, to form salt and water. In this case, salt produced is sodium chloride aqueous along with H2O liquid. In aqueous form, we can make ions. For example, in HCl aqueous, it will be H positive ion reacting with Cl negative ion. Again, in sodium hydroxide aqueous, it will be sodium ion reacting with hydroxide ion. Similarly, the ions of sodium chloride will be Na positive and Cl negative. Now H2O is not in the form of aqueous, it is liquid, so therefore it is not ion, it is a molecule of water. So it says atoms to molecules, ions to molecules, atoms to ions or ions to atoms. as we can see that there are only ions on the reactant side, while there are ions as well as molecules on the product side. So we can say that the molecules are formed from ions. Correct answer is therefore part B. Question 25. In order to decide which would be better nitrogenous fertilizer, a student calculates the percentage by mass of nitrogen in both ammonium sulfate and ammonium nitrate. Which row gives correct results? Now we have to find the percentage by mass of nitrogen in ammonium sulfate and also the mass of nitrogen in ammonium nitrate. We can use the formula percentage by mass is equal to atomic mass of nitrogen into number of atoms of nitrogen divided by the molecular mass of whole compound multiplied by 100. Let's first find this in ammonium sulfate. The formula of ammonium sulfate is NH4 whole 2 SO4. We have two nitrogen atoms. So according to the formula, the atomic mass of nitrogen is 14. There are two atoms of nitrogen divided by the whole molecular mass. Let's find the molecular mass. 2 nitrogen is 28. We have 8 hydrogen atoms, so it will be 8. 1 sulfur, which is 32. 4 oxygen, 16 into 4 is 64. Adding them all together, we have 132. So we can use the formula. The MR of compound will be 132 into 100. So in ammonium sulfate, the percentage of nitrogen, it comes equal to 21.2%. Now doing the same for ammonium nitrate, the formula of ammonium nitrate is NH4NO3. Again we have two atoms of nitrogen. So 14 into 2 divided by the MR. There are two nitrogen atoms, so it is 28. 4 hydrogen atoms, so it is 4. 3 oxygen atoms, so 16 into 3 will be 48. Adding these three together, the MR comes equal to 80. We can do the calculation. 14, which is the atomic mass of nitrogen, into the number of atoms of nitrogen, which is 2, divided by MR of ammonium nitrate, which is 80. So it comes equal to 35%. Correct option is therefore C. Question 26. The manufacture of sulfuric acid by contact process involves the use of 3 different raw materials. How many of these raw materials are elements, how many are compounds, and how many are mixtures? In the formation of sulfuric acid by contact process, we need these raw materials. First one is sulfur. Second one is air. And third one is water. Now sulfur is present in periodic table, therefore it is element. Air is a combination of different gases, so therefore it is a mixture. Water is the chemical combination of hydrogen and oxygen, therefore it is compound. So we have one element, one mixture, and one compound. Correct answer is therefore C. Question 27. The diagram shows parts of the periodic table. We have W, which is in group 2, Then we have X, which is a part of transition elements. We have Y, which is in group 6, Z, which is in group 7. Which two letters represent elements that can react together to form covalent compounds? Now we know that covalent compounds can be formed between non-metal elements by sharing of electrons. Now W is in group 2 of the periodic table and group 2 is metal, so W cannot make a covalent bond. X is part of transition metals. Again, X does not form covalent compounds. Y and Z, Y is in group 6 of the periodic table. Z is in group 7 of the periodic table. Group 6 and group 7 both can comprise of non-metal elements. So therefore Y and Z can react together to form covalent compounds. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 28. Which statement about elements in periodic table is correct? Part A. Elements at the left hand side of the periodic table are more metallic than those in the same period near the right hand side. This statement is true, as group 1, group 2, transition, they are all metals. While as we move onward from group 3, for example group 5, group 6, group 7, they are comprising of non-metals. So metallic character decreases along the period. Part B. Elements at the top of group lose electrons more readily than those in the same group that are lower in the periodic table. Now for example, if we have group 1, what happens as we move down in the group is that in each period a new shell is added. Now the outer electron is moving far from the nucleus, so therefore it is easy to remove the outermost electron. So it will be difficult to remove the electron from the top element. It will be easy to remove an electron from the element that is present below in the group. So this statement is incorrect. Part C. Elements in the same group of the periodic table have same number of completed shells of electrons. This is incorrect, as we have seen that as we move down in the same group, the number of shells increase. Part D. Elements in the same period of the periodic table have the same number of electrons in the outer shell. Now this is incorrect, because elements present in the same period, they have same number of shells. Elements present in the same group have same number of electrons in the outer shell. So statement D is also incorrect. Correct answer is therefore A. Question 29. Which statement about the properties of the element in group 8 of the periodic table, helium to xenon, is correct? Part A. Argon reacts with iron to form a compound. Now argon is a group 8 element, so therefore group 8 elements are noble gases which are unreactive, so they do not form compounds. Part B. Helium is less dense than air. Now the atomic mass of helium according to periodic table is 4, and helium exists in the form of atoms, while air consists of nitrogen and also contains oxygen. Nitrogen is in maximum amount, second highest is oxygen. The atomic mass of nitrogen is 28, while for oxygen is 32. So average mass is around 30. Now average mass of helium atoms is 4, while for air it is 30. So therefore helium is less dense than air. Part C. The elements change from gas to solid down the group. Now this is not true for group 8, because in group 8 all elements are in the form of gases. There is no solid which is present. Part D. The elements exist as covalent molecules. Now group 8 elements are unreactive. They do not react, so therefore they exist in the form of atoms, not in the form of molecules. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 30. Which two statements indicate that metal M may have a proton number between 21 and 30? Now looking at the periodic table, if we see that the atomic number of scandium is given as 21, while the atomic number of zinc is given as 30. From scandium to zinc, all are transition elements or transition metals. Number 1, it conducts electricity. Now this is true for these elements present from 21 to 30. This is also true statement for all other metals present in the periodic table. So from this option we cannot guarantee that the proton number is between 21 and 30. Though this statement is correct, but it is applicable to all metals, not just transition. We have to find out the properties that are only possible for transition metals. Number 2, it does not react with water. Now this is true for these transition elements, but this is also true for other elements present in the periodic table. So therefore this statement does not define transition metal. Third one is that it forms two basic oxides with the formula MO and M2O3. Now in both these oxides the oxidation state is different. In MO the metal is +2 oxidation state, while in M2O3 the metal is in +3 oxidation states. Now we know that only transition metals can exist in more than one or variable oxidation states, so therefore this statement defines transition metals. Number 4, it forms two colored sulfates. Now this is also true because only transition metals form colored compounds, not other elements present in the periodic table. As option 3 and 4 are correct for transition elements, so therefore answer is D. Question 31. Different metals react with water in different ways. Which statement is correct? Part A, calcium does not react with cold water. This is incorrect because calcium reacts readily with cold water to form calcium hydroxide along with hydrogen gas. Part B, iron reacts slowly with steam to produce an oxide of iron and hydrogen. We can write the equation for this one. Iron is Fe. It can react with steam, H2O gas, and the reaction is slow. It forms oxide, which is Fe3O4, along with the formation of hydrogen gas. So this statement is true. Option C, magnesium reacts with steam to produce magnesium hydroxide and oxygen. This is incorrect because, as we can see, magnesium reacts with steam to form magnesium oxide instead of magnesium hydroxide along with hydrogen gas. So it should be magnesium oxide. Part D, sodium reacts with cold water to produce sodium oxide and hydrogen. Now sodium reacts with cold water to form sodium hydroxide. It does not produce sodium oxide on cold water. So we can write the equation: sodium plus cold water, it forms NaOH aqueous along with hydrogen gas. So the only correct option is part B. Question 32. Metal X is more reactive than zinc but less reactive than sodium. What would be the best method for obtaining metal X from its O? For this, you should remember the reactivity series of metals. We have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, carbon, zinc, iron, and so on. So it says metal X is more reactive than zinc. It means it is above zinc, and less reactive than sodium. It should be below sodium. So metal X could be calcium, magnesium, or aluminum. Part A, electrolysis of an aqueous solution of salt of X. So if we take aqueous solution, we have two ions, one is this metal ions, one is hydrogen. Let's suppose we take aqueous solution of calcium. So we have calcium plus 2, we also have H plus. So as H plus is easily discharged as compared to these all three metals, so therefore hydrogen gas will be produced instead of these metals. So we are not going to take aqueous solutions of salt X. Part B is the electrolysis of molten oxide of X. If we take molten oxide, for example calcium oxide, molten, it will form calcium 2 positive and oxygen 2 negative ions. So calcium 2 positive is cation, it will move towards cathode and form calcium solid. So therefore electrolysis of molten oxide is correct statement. Part C, heating the oxide of X in hydrogen. As we can see that these are more reactive metals as compared to hydrogen, which is below in the reactivity series. So hydrogen cannot reduce the oxide of these elements. For example, magnesium oxide plus hydrogen, it will not form magnesium plus water. Part D, heating the oxide of X with powdered carbon. Again we can see that these metals are more reactive than carbon, so therefore carbon is unable to reduce these metals from their respective oxides. Only correct option is part B. Question 33, steel is often galvanized. Which statement about galvanizing are correct? Now galvanizing means coating with a layer of zinc. Part 1, galvanizing makes a steel alloy. This is incorrect because it is just coating above the surface of steel to form a layer of zinc. Part 2, galvanizing provides sacrificial protection against rusting. This is true because in reactivity series we can see that zinc is more reactive than iron, so therefore zinc will provide sacrificial protection against rusting. Part 3, galvanizing coats a layer of zinc onto steel. This is correct statement. As option 2 and 3 are correct, therefore answer is C. Question 34. In the extraction of aluminum from aluminum oxide, the following three reactions take place. They have given the reactions. One is aluminum plus 3, it forms aluminum metal. Second is oxide, it forms oxygen. Third is graphite, which reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. Which reactions take place at the positive electrode? Now we know that positive electrode is anode and anions always move towards anode. Aluminum plus 3 is cation as it is positively charged, so therefore this will move towards cathode, not anode. Oxygen negative 2 is anion, so it will move towards anode to form oxygen. Third is graphite, as we know that anode is made of graphite. So at higher temperature what happens is that this graphite, which is carbon, it reacts with oxygen formed at the anode to form carbon dioxide. So option 2 and 3 seems to be correct. Answer is therefore D. Question 35. The carbon cycle regulates the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Combustion, photosynthesis, and respiration are involved in this cycle. How do these processes affect the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? So we have combustion, we have photosynthesis, and we have respiration. Let's write the chemical equation for all these three processes. First one is combustion, which is burning in the presence of oxygen. Let's suppose we have methane gas. It will burn in oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. So combustion of hydrocarbons always increase the amount of carbon dioxide, so therefore we can say that it increases CO2. Second one is photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, what happens that carbon dioxide and water, both of them in the plants, they react together to form glucose in the presence of sunlight along with the production of oxygen gas. So as CO2 is consumed, so therefore its concentration will decrease in the atmosphere. Third one is respiration. Respiration occurs in body cells. What happens in respiration is that the glucose molecules, they break down C6H12O6 in the process of respiration in the presence of oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water along with energy. So as concentration of carbon dioxide is increased, so therefore it increases CO2. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 36. Which statement about alkanes is correct? Part A. Alkanes are described as being saturated because they are insoluble in water. This is not true because alkanes are saturated because they have carbon-carbon single covalent bonds between them. And each carbon is making 4 sigma bonds or 4 single covalent bonds, so therefore there is no further addition which is possible. Therefore they are called saturated molecules. It is not because of the solubility. Part B. Alkanes react with chlorine in an addition reaction. Now addition reaction is only possible in which we have double bonds which is present, as in alkanes only single covalent bonds are present, so therefore they do not react with chlorine in addition reactions. Part C. The alkane containing 10 carbon atoms in each molecule has a higher viscosity than the alkane containing 20 carbon atoms. Now the alkane containing 10 carbon atoms will be C10H22 according to the general formula CnH2n plus 2, while the one containing 20 carbon atoms will be C20H42. So as the number of carbon atom increase, the viscosity also increases. So the viscosity of C20 will be much higher as compared to the viscosity of C10. Part D. The formula of an alkane with 35 carbon atoms in each molecule is C35H72. Let's see whether it is according to the general formula CnH2n plus 2. So if n is 35, then it will be C35H2 into 35 plus 2. So it is 70 plus 2, 72. So this statement is correct. Correct answer is therefore D. Question 37. The structure of compound X is shown. This is compound X. We have double bond which is present. 4 statements are made about compound X. Option 1. X burns in air to form carbon dioxide and water. As we can see, it contains carbon and hydrogen only, so therefore it is a hydrocarbon, and hydrocarbon burns to form carbon dioxide and water, so statement 1 is true. Option 2. X turns bromine water from colorless to brown. Now bromine can add among these carbon atoms as double bond is formed, so bromine will be added such that double bond is converted into single bond, and with each carbon atom one bromine atom is added. It turns from brown to colorless. As this statement is other way around, so therefore this is incorrect. Option 3. X is propene. Propene means we have 3 carbon atoms, as this is alkene, so according to general formula CnH2n, there should be 6 hydrogens, but we can see there are 4 carbon atoms in this structure, so therefore it is not propene. Number 4. The number of CC single bonds is increased by reacting X with hydrogen. When we react With hydrogen, what happens is that this double bond is also converted into single bond. So now we can see that initially we had 2 single bonds, 1 double bond. Now we have 3 single bonds. So this statement is also true. Correct answer is therefore B. Question 38. When ethene reacts with steam to form ethanol, which type of reaction takes place? Now we can see in ethene we have carbon-carbon double bond, 2 hydrogen atoms with first carbon, 2 hydrogen atoms are attached to second carbon atom. When it reacts with steam, steam is water, we can write HOH. Now what will happen is that this one part, it will be attached to one carbon atom, while the second part it is going to be attached to second carbon. Now the product formed is like this. Double bond is converted into single bond. We have now 3 hydrogen atoms on first carbon and 2 hydrogen atoms and OH group on second carbon. As we can see, only one product is formed, or single product is formed from addition of 2 products. So therefore this is addition reaction. Answer is therefore A. Question 39. Which compound could be a flavoring in a non-alcoholic fruit drink? Now we know that for flavors we use esters. Functional group of esters is C double bond O, O, and on both sides we have alkyl groups. On the first option we can see that OH is given, which means it is alcohol, it is not ester. In second option they have given COOH, which means it is carboxylic acid functional group. In third option we have COO, which is ester. In fourth option again we have alcohol functional group. We can draw C like this. We have CH3, then carbon atom. There are 2 oxygen atoms, one is double bonded with carbon, one is single bonded to carbon. 4 CH2 and 1 CH3 group. Now this is the functional group of ester. Therefore answer is part C. Question 40. P is a polymer that has 6 carbon atoms in each of the monomers from which it is formed, is not a polyester, is formed using condensation polymerization. What is the partial structure of P? Let's look into the first option. It must have 6 carbon atoms in each of the monomers. Now we can see we can divide this into 2 monomers. We can divide part B into 2 monomers, C into 2 monomers, and D into 2 monomers. Now let's look into the number of carbon atoms. There are 4 carbon atoms in the center, 5 and 6. So there are 6 carbon atoms in one of the monomer, and there are 6 carbon atoms in the second monomer. In part B, we can see we have 6 carbon atoms in the center. This one is 7th, this is 8th. So we have 8 carbon atoms in one of the monomer, and in second monomer we have 6 carbon atoms. So B is incorrect, as both of the monomers must consist of 6 carbon atoms each. In part C, again we can see we have 4 in the center, 2 on the side, so it is 6 carbon monomer. On this side again we have 6 carbon monomer. So it could either be A or C according to the first point. In part D we have 3, then 4, 5 and 6. 6 on one side and 1, 2, 3 and 3, 6 on the other side. Let's look into second option. It is not a polyester. Now polyester is something that consists of this linkage, which is ester linkage. Let's look into part A. We have ester linkage present. So this A is a polyester, so therefore A is incorrect. In part B, we can see this is not ester, it is amide. Again, in part C, we do not have ester linkage, and in part D, there is just alkane. Third option, it is formed using condensation polymerization. Now we know that when condensation polymerization takes place, then we can have amide linkage or ester linkage. So as ester linkage is incorrect, so it must be amide linkage. In part D, we can see we have long chain of addition polymerization, so therefore this is not condensation polymerization example. So in part C, we have 6 carbon atoms in each monomer. C is not a polyester, it is polyamide, and C is formed using condensation polymerization, so therefore answer is C. Thanks for watching. A like, comment and subscribe will be highly appreciated. You can find related videos in playlists. Stay happy and enjoy learning.